Hello everyone. Welcome to my session. I'm very glad you chose to join because we're gonna see very interesting things today about Azure DevOps and Azure in general. Let me share my screen. Share screen two. Give me a minute. You should see Munich by now, and now you should see the first slide. So, what we're gonna see today, I know we don't have enough time, so allow me to quickly pass on some stages. We're going to see how to use Azure DevOps to build and deploy a Docker image to Azure. We're gonna see the details later, but before that, let me introduce myself. I am George Kosmidis. I work as a software architect at a company named TechCycle Solutions here in Munich, Germany. Besides that, I organize the Munich.NET meetup and the Munich TypeScript meetup. Feel free to join the meetup.com platform and find the meetups and find me. Nevertheless, if you don't have any meetup.com account, you can find me with my Twitter account and ask any questions, or LinkedIn, GitHub, everything you see there. So this is a more detailed plan of what we're going to do today. First of all, we are going to create, let's see if we have time at the end after the presentation to create a .NET Core app and add Docker support. There are many ways to do that. We're going to do it through the Visual Studio and then tweak the Docker file a bit. Then we're going to push our code to Azure DevOps repos. We don't need Azure DevOps repos for this. We need any kind of repo. I'm just using DevOps repo, Azure repos. And frankly, since we don't have enough time, I'm going to completely skip that step because, yeah, more or less, I assume everyone knows how to use Git. Once we did this, let me go one step before. Once we push our code to DevOps to Azure repos, we're going to use Azure pipelines to actually build and deploy our image. Where? We're going to deploy it in Azure Container Registry here that we're going to set up, and then set up an Azure App Service to pick up the latest image deployed in the Azure Container Registry to publish it to web so we can all see it. Now, a bit more details. How are we going to do it? We're going to create a .NET Core web app. I find it impossible to do that with our limited time, so I have a .NET Core app ready, and we're going to go through it after the presentation. We're going to add Docker support through Visual Studio. As we said before, we're going to set up Azure Container Registry first. That sounds a bit unordered, but we need the Azure Container Registry in order then to use our Azure DevOps pipelines and push to the Azure Container Registry. And at the end, since we push something in Azure Container Registry, we will be able to set up Azure Web App to and set continuous deployment there to pick any new images from the Azure Container Registry and publish it. Now, some prerequisites. .NET Core understanding. Yeah, that is not necessary. Since the presentation at the end, the hands-on session, depending on the time that we'll have, is about .NET Core and Visual Studio, it would be cool. But of course, you understand that you can build anything and create an image, a container, Docker container out of everything. Use Azure DevOps for that container. Use Azure web app for this. No problem about the technology. Basic Git knowledge, especially this, since I'm going to completely skip the part that we're pushing our code to Azure DevOps repos. We don't have enough time. That would be cool. Basic Docker knowledge, that is necessary. We're going to go through the Docker file and explain what is happening there, but some knowledge would be nice. I also have a link there you can find on my website, my blog. If you search for Docker or Docker cheat sheet, you will find a blog post that is quite useful for all these commands that we may forget. An Azure DevOps account and an Azure account, these are not necessary for this presentation, but we understand at the end, if you want to apply what you learned, you will need these. So let's start. First step, let's create a .NET Core web app and add Docker support. We're going to go through the presentation now and see all of them at the end. I think it's better depending on the time left. So while creating a .NET Core web app from Visual Studio, you will reach at some point that screen that we see here. At that point, we just need to click that one, enable Docker support. There are some more options like Linux, like the operating system, but yeah, but we leave them for now. If we create a new web app, this is the way to do it. But if we already have an app running, then and we want to add Docker support there, we're gonna right click on our solution. This is again on our project. This is again Visual Studio. Then go to add, and at the end click Docker support. This action here will add the Docker file, which will be this one. Now there is a problem. Visual Studio context is different from where we're going to run Docker build and read the Docker file. Visual Studio starts from the folder that the solution lives in, one app that we want, but we need to run Docker from within the folder that this CS prod lives. So in other words, the Docker file is here. You see, bottom right corner. This is where it lives. This is cool. We want it there, but all the references is as the solution starts. Let me show this animation. As we run from this file, this is the solution where the solution lives. We want to run Docker from this part. Now, Visual Studio, if you run Docker from within Visual Studio, that would be cool. Docker will understand that. Visual Studio will understand that, and will run the Docker file very well. But we need for Azure pipelines to run everything from here. So we need to make some changes. First of all, let's see some important things here. What we see are we pull two images, the runtime and the SDK, right? We use the SDK to build our application and the runtime then to run. Why not use the SDK to also run the application? Well, at the end, we want a Docker image that is as small as possible and as optimized as possible. The Docker runtime, the ASP.NET runtime will do exactly that, but the SDK will add all these other information like the PDB files that will be useful for debug, and we don't want that. Additionally, the runtime exposes directly the port 80 and 443, where the SDK exposes ports 5000 and 5001. So let's go. As a first step, we need to remove a couple of things. We need to change that Docker file, as we said. One thing is to remove line 4. It's not necessarily, it will still work, because if you notice here, this is our first stage where we pull the runtime, and we continue this stage by creating a new stage here, and we set again work dir up. We don't, anyway. Visual Studio that created this Docker file does. So this line here, the line 4, is not necessary. We can remove it, you can leave it, but it has no meaning. Line 10, though, let me replay the animation here. This line needs to change. As we said before, this supposes that the context is as we've seen here, but we want to run it from here, from within the Azure Docker. So Visual Studio adds this Docker file, supposedly that it will go one step in and find our CS prods. We don't have that. So we need to remove this part here. Last part, these commands here. Again, for the same reason, we need to define what the work is before we start copying, right? So we need to change the order of these two commands. And that concludes more or less the changes that we want to do in our Docker file in order to run. There are not significant changes, just the context changes. Where does our application lives, and where do we run our application from, our Docker build actually. So let's start line to line to see what is happening here. First, we already said we are creating the first stage of this multi-stage Docker file. We are pulling the runtime .NET 5 here, and we name it base. We are exposing two ports for this stage. We could very well pull that to lines 20 where we continue, but anyway, we do that here. Then we pull the SDK. We create another stage named build. We set up the work dir to be source. That's the first step, and then we copy everything that finds from where we are now, from when we are running. And this is the difference, right? If Visual Studio runs from the solution folder and wants to find the CS prods that you see here in the folder Azure Docker and then Azure Docker CS prods, we run from within that folder already. So we have a direct access to CS prods, and we copy everything where to Azure Docker, which is, since we set up work here, as source is /source/Azure Docker. Once we have our CS prods there, we run Docker restore to pull any dependencies, any nugget packages, and then we'll continue. We have that ready. It's working okay. We continue to our next step. We set up the working dir to now be /source/Azure Docker. So like go from the beginning and repeat that part, but now add also Azure Docker, this part here. We copy everything that we have from our context. So actually these parts here to the new work dir, which is that one. And we find that actually the CS prods that lives in that work dir, we already are here, and we build it as a release with output in a folder named app/build/app/build. So outside source, right? Then we create a new stage. In that stage, we run .NET publish for that CS prods. Again, we still live here as a release and in the file, in the path/app/publish. Now, why do we do that? Visual Studio adds those two separately. We could do it as one, because first of all, this is kind of a check if everything builds. And secondly, we could run cleanup commands here if we had more than one CS prods to build, more than one project to build. It would be much easier. So it's not necessary here, but if you had more, it could be useful. Anyway, once we have this, our app published in this folder here, we switch and we continue from this stage here, but now we name it final. We create a new stage named final. We set up our work dir to be /app, where we are, and we're instructing now copy everything from stage publish, which is this stage here. Whatever you find to the path /app/publish, this path here, to the current work dir, which is that one. And then we are done, right? This is the last part, the entry point. And you know what I forgot? I forgot to click and show all these animations. But anyway, now we are at our last part, the entry point. We are setting up what will be the entry point for this Docker image. So this is more or less how we create a Docker file, part of this presentation. Let's go to the next one. Let's build, store, secure, scan, replicate, and manage our Docker images. This is more like a promo. We're not going to do all this now. We're going to store our images, but this is everything that you can do. Security comes with it anyway. So let's start. For those of you that are not familiar with Azure, with Microsoft Azure, that's the first screen. You see your recent resources here, and you have this convenient search on top that we can very well use. What do we want? We want the container registry. So, sorry, that's what we are going to type there, and we're going to see this list. Now, when I was creating these slides, for some reason, the container registry was third from the marketplace. I don't know why. Usually it's first. But anyway, we want that. We click on that, and we come to this very common screen for Azure, where we are creating a new resource. First of all, we choose our subscription. This is not an Azure presentation, so yeah, assumingly you have a subscription already. You wouldn't be here anyway. And then we need to select our resource group. It's always a nice idea to create a new resource group for anything you want to do, like keep everything tied. And we click the create new link. We have this screen there. We write Azure Docker. I did it anyway. Click OK. And then we are here. We have our new resource group. We're going to use it later. Then our registry name. I chose Azure Docker, and this with the addition of that will be our URL, right? azuredocker.azurecr.io. That will be our registry. Then we choose our location. The location is the region where Azure will deploy our registry. If you choose a US Central, I think you will also have some free SKU to play around. West Germany, I think, doesn't have any. Anyway, we leave that. You can very well use it. This is a high availability offering that provides resiliency and high availability to a container registry in a specific region, in the region that we asked. Last but not least, our SKU. Now you can choose any SKU you want, of course. There are no limitations, there are no missing programmatic capabilities, but choosing a higher SKU, as you understand, will provide more performance and scalability and scale. For me, it's standard. If you choose, as I said, US Central, you will most probably have some free SKUs there. Most probably we'll have some time at the end to see that. Let's see. Review and create. Now the next page, when you click review and create, will be a review page. You will see potentially any mistakes that you did, and if everything goes okay, you will click review then, and you will create your Azure Container Registry. Now, when you click create, you will not come to this screen, right? You will actually go, give me a minute. You will actually go to that screen we talked about already here, right? You will be here waiting a few minutes, a few seconds actually to get that resource. And then you can type here Azure Docker instead of container registry that we did before. Once you do that, you will land here in this overview page. From that overview page, you click, yeah, you are here, we know. You click access keys, and then you are coming to this page over here, from where you need to enable admin user. Although the admin account is designed for a single user to access the registry, mainly for testing purposes, in order to be able to use the current registry from the app service that we'll create later from the web app and select image source and continuous deployment, we need to have this admin user enabled. We did that, nothing needed here. We are done for now with the container registry. We'll continue now with the Azure DevOps. And once we finish our job here, we will go back to the container registry and see what's happening. So, what time is it? Okay, we still have time. Azure DevOps. Let's use Azure DevOps to build, test, and push our Docker image to Azure Container Registry. Test, we'll see if we have time to test. So, that's the first screen of Azure DevOps. I missed the parts that you need to create an Azure DevOps project. We will see that in the hands-on presentation in a minute, not in a minute, but anyway, later. Anyway, I have an Azure Docker project created. And first thing we need to do is go to project settings, bottom left. We see this screen, but this is the first screen, more or less. We need to scroll down a bit to reach the Azure DevOps services. From these services, at least I don't want for now boards. It's Agile. It's like Jira, let's say, but with a very good and tight integration with repos and pipelines and everything. So it's very cool. Anyway, we'll not want to see that now. But I'm going to use repos and pipelines. Repos, as we said, we don't have enough time to check it right now, but it's like you can use GitHub, you can use anything you want. Pipelines is the important thing. No save button or something. We just click the Azure Docker on top there or wherever you want. And we don't exactly go there. We go to a page that we were before, like the overview, right? We are going, let's see, to this page. From that, no, sorry, we are going to the first page. Anyway, let me not spend some more time here. We're going to the first Azure Docker, Azure DevOps page. At this page, when we are at the first page, we click pipelines and we come to this page here that we see now. From there, we click create pipelines and we start a wizard-like question. So where's your code? For us, it's Azure repos, but you can very well use GitHub, you can use a generic Git repository, you can use anything you want as long as Azure DevOps has access to it to pull your code, right? I use Azure DevOps and I don't need to do anything else. It can see directly all my repositories. It's only one here. But if you use GitHub, for example, you will have to create a service connection. This wizard here guides you, and it's a rather easy thing to do. We will see if we have time how to do it manually from the project settings again. Nevertheless, we have Azure Docker here. We click on Azure Docker as our code, and then we need to configure our pipeline. The two first things we see, the two first choices we see is build a Docker image and build and push a Docker image to Azure Container Registry. Very convenient because this is exactly what we're gonna do. But you can see that there are multiple choices there. It's nice to play around. We can build everything you want, even Xamarin, UWP. You can build everything you want with Azure pipelines. So we select that one, click next. Now, they are both Azure, right? And since they are both Azure, they can see my subscriptions in Azure. This is the list you will see here, the list of all your subscription in Azure for that account that you logged in. I choose the subscription I want, the subscription I used, for the Azure DevOps. And then I click continue. Now, this is the place that I was, the moment that I was telling you before for GitHub. If you don't have a service connection for that other service, you will not be able to pull details. So I do have a connection between Azure. They are all Azure, and they can see my subscriptions. They are valid. My subscription of Azure are valid in Azure DevOps. But if I want to see details about that subscription, what do I have in there? Then I need to give permissions. I'm called to log in to the my account in Azure, and I click next. I'm not going to follow all the process because I already have done it. But it's like a very common. Do you want Azure DevOps to access your account, give permissions, blah, 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 allow, click, and done. Nothing more, wizard again. Once we're done with that one, we're gonna see this screen, which will have here all our container registries that we created in our Azure account. We have our Azure Docker. This is what we selected, right? An image name, this is done sort of automatically, let's say. It's a suggestion. We leave it as is. And the Docker file, where the Docker file lives. So that is also correct. Validate and configure. You will most probably not have any mistakes there because we don't need to change anything. And we are here. We are in our YAML pipeline. Now, at this point, it's a nice idea to change the name of the pipeline. If you don't, the next pipeline, and most probably in a production or anyway in a real world situation, you will have a lot of pipelines. Production, I don't know, develop, features, tests, whatever. This way, if you leave it as is, the next pipeline will be named Azure-pipelines-1-2 and so forth. It will have a number and it will be very difficult to understand them. It's a nice idea to change them now because it comes for free. I didn't. You see, just before I go to the next animation, the next screen, besides the name of the YAML file, you can see here the initial parts of the YAML file, right? When it's triggered, about what resource, and some variables that it's what we already seen before. Let's see these variables here. Now, these are the stages. This is the line 22, and after that we're not in, yeah, the screen was not big enough to fit everything. I would very much like, to be honest, to have these as separate stages because one stage is built and one stage is published or pushed to the container registry. Nevertheless, this is how the YAML file is created. We're not going to change that now. It's no reason. We're just going to see a few things. This is the Vim image, right? This is the variable. You can see it in line 20 here. Next one is the image repository. It's Azure Docker. If you remember, this is what we created. This is what we had in the previous screen, the wizard. The Docker file path, exactly that one again, and the service connection. This is created automatically. We'll see it later in the demo, depending on the time we have. This is the connection that gives Azure DevOps permissions for to push an image to Azure Container Registry. Last one, this is the tag. The tag is what accompanies your Docker image, and it's an incremental number. It's always a new number, and this is not very convenient to pick the latest. You will see later why. So the only change that we actually need to do here, it is a very convenient change, at least for me, is to add this latest tag over there, because we will have two tags, we don't care, but this tag will save us later. Let's see why. So it's done. We are done here. We just need to click save and run. And we are going to go in the first screen again, but in the pipelines, we will see now this thing here. Once this ends successfully, hopefully, it means that we have a new image published in our Azure Container Registry. And let's go to see exactly that. Let's switch back to this other tab, hopefully that we didn't close. This is the Azure Container Registry, that the Azure Docker, the container registry that we created before. We were in access keys, right? We were here, but now let's click in repositories. We see our repository, our repo that created from Azure DevOps now, and we can see all our tags here. One of them is latest. Now you see two tags that I created before that latest. Actually, I didn't create 346 tags. I didn't push that many. I don't know why it started from there. But anyway, these latest tags will always contain the latest. So when this tag changes, you know that Azure Container Registry will know that it will pull the latest image. If we click on it, we see some useful informations like the creation date. We can verify that this is indeed the image that we just sent and not an old one in the latest tag. There is no other way. This is rather easy to remember here that I had the 346 tag, the 346, and now I see 347 and everything is cool. But is the latest tag contains indeed our latest creation? We check here. Yeah, we also see some other information like the platform chosen and the manifest files, not very important for now. And we're done. All this meant that our push to Azure Container Registry was successful. Next and last step. Give me a second. Let's use Azure Web Apps and configure Azure Continuous Deployment to publish our Docker image. Now, at this stage, we already have our image in Azure Container Registry waiting for us. First screen of Azure, we already know it. Convenient search bar on top. We search this time for web app. This is what we want to create. We want to create a web app. This time, it's first in the marketplace. The other one should be first again, but anyway, we click on web app. Very common screen. We see it all the time. We choose our subscription and our resource group. The resource group that we created already is Azure Docker. So we use that. As name, we choose Azure Docker, Azure Websites.net. That will be our URL for our public application. Important thing, right? We are not pushing code in that web app. We could do directly that, but we want to push an image, a Docker container. So we choose that. Our operating system will be Linux. I didn't circle that. Our region will be West German. And our SKU, our plan, again, I didn't do anything for this slide. I should, but anyway, you can choose. If you have US Central, you can choose a free one, but you can choose anything you want. Review and create. Next screen is actually the review, and then you click create. We search from that convenient bar on top our Azure Docker web app. This time it's an app service, and we scroll, maybe if our screen is too small, and find this setting from the left, container settings. This is a classic one. It's a new one is in beta. I'm not sure if it's published already or not, but let's use that one. We choose Azure Container Registry. You see that you have a lot of choices. It could be a private registry somewhere that you have, that you host, or it could be Docker Hub, or it could be Azure Container Registry for those that don't like vendor locks. We choose that, screen changes a bit, and we have our registry. We have only one, so it's Azure Docker. We have our image name, which is the repository that we've seen before. It's Azure Docker. And we have our tag. And this is the useful thing. Since we want to have a continuous deployment, we can just push, select 346, because we will never push again an image in 346, but we will always push new images in the latest tag. So we choose that one. And of course, continuous deployment, right? Set it to on, click save, and that's it. Easy, right? Not a big problem to do all these things. I know that I skipped some parts like the repos, but we have time to see things in real life, how they are. So, summary, what we did. We've created the .NET Core web app and added Docker support. We didn't create it, it was ready, but it's okay. We've changed Docker file for use outside Visual Studio. We did that. We've set up an Azure Container Registry and prepared to accept requests for storing and retrieve images. We did that. We've set up Azure Devops to build and push a Docker image to Azure Container Registry, right? And at the end, we've set up Azure Web App, App Service Web App, the same, to use continuous deployment to retrieve an image from Azure Container Registry and then publish it. Now, we're going to see some live things, but if you need any help, there are two ways to do it. One, visit my blog here. You can find it. Actually, it's my name and surname again. Or if you type georgekosmidis.net and search for Docker, this will bring two results. One is this one, the publish a container.NET Core app using Docker, Azure DevOps, Azure Container Registry, a long title, and Azure App Service, which is more or less this title, right? I don't know. Why is my face now here? I don't know. But anyways, that's probably something wrong from the slides. Yeah, anyway, and you will also see this, which is the Docker cheat sheet that I've told you before. This is a problem. Anyway, you could also ask for help for me directly by visiting my Twitter profile, which is my name and my surname again. I will ask you as fast as I can. And now, time for a demo. Let's see. Let's see how much time we have. It's 53. Let me go back to see here what is happening. Okay, so let's see some demo. I think since the conference is about Azure DevOps, it could be nice to skip to Azure DevOps directly, right? And see, for example, how we create a new project that we didn't see through the presentation. So what do we need to do? Azure DevOps, just write that, easy, first result. I am not signed in, but I will. I am signed in. Is it the correct account? Sorry. Yeah, it's the correct account. Click whatever you want. Let's say start free. Once you're signed in, it's okay. But you actually can start free, right? And this is the first screen that you see. You see all your organizations here and all your projects within that organization that you selected here. So this is a very easy choice. New project, let's name it test. I will delete it. You have the choice to be a public. They can't do much if it's public, so don't worry, or a private, right? If it's a public, it's a nice thing to offer back to the community, see things. The Azure Docker project, this one that we were seeing, it's this one. Actually, it's public, right? But you can also, if you are within your organization and you want to do things privately, you have that choice. You also have free stuff with private, a private project. These sort of change from time to time. I don't remember now what the free stuff are, what the limitations are for the private projects. I think they are based on speed, right? How many resources you could have available to build at the same time, how many pipelines and stuff. It's easy to find. Anyway, let's create a public right now. No limitations there. It will take a minute. It should be done by now. Okay, I thought Murphy was here. So this is the first screen. This is the Agile board that I was telling you about. Very configurable, very nice to have. But what we did was we went to project settings here, and we scrolled down, and we found these services enabled repos and pipelines and disabled that. This is a warning that, you know, if I disable it here, you are turning it off completely. Yeah, we didn't do anything. And that's done. There is no save button or anything here. Just the delete project that I will do later. So this is more or less what you need to do for the to enable the pipelines, right? If we go now back, as I did in the presentation here, we see this screen, welcome to the project, and then we are going to pipelines to create our first pipeline. Now, since we have a few minutes left until the, let me check that, until the Q&A session starts, and I would ask some help here, if they can hear me, to tell me when exactly is the Q&A starting. Give me a moment. I don't want to break their schedule. So let me continue. Create a pipeline. We can do that with GitHub now. It will be cool. Let's choose GitHub. I think I already have a service connection, but what I can do, yeah, I already have a service connection. I can go to my service connections here. You see, this is the service connections. Something went wrong because I don't see the image here. Let's create a service connection with GitHub and auth configurator, Azure pipelines, authorize Azure pipelines. This pops a new window. Now, that window that you've seen popped, it would be if GitHub didn't had my permission for Azure DevOps, that window that popped up, and it was a GitHub window, right? That was about to ask me, do you want to give permissions to Azure DevOps and stuff? Since I already did it, it's not necessary. They knew already that I give permission, so that is the service connection. This is a manual way of how to create the service connection. Again, it is not necessary, but now we have that here. If we go to our project now again to pipelines and create a pipeline and access GitHub, now I should see again my projects, all my projects in GitHub. This is private, I don't know why, but we can choose anything. For example, let's see, we can choose that one, why not? And then we continue as before. We chose to create a Docker image. We need a service connection. I don't know if I already have. Let's load subscription. It's rather slow, to be honest today. I don't know why. Probably it's the Murphy, no? Continue. This is where you need to give permissions. Again, this is a screen that creates automatically the service connection after we give permissions. So outlook.com. Next, I need to get, I don't know why, but that would be rather easy. Approve. And we should be done. Now the service connection is completed. This is what you have to do to actually see everything you have there. And let's see if we have any container residency. We have that one. This is another experiment, obviously. And the image name now is Azure ASP.NET Core Web Sockets, some random project that I created. I could do that. It's not that bad, but we could also switch back to the our project, because I think It's 2 o'clock. I started 1:20, 45 minutes, 5 minutes left. So it's Q&A time. It's up to you now to ask anything you want. Let's see if there are any questions to Q&A. And up until you ask for something, I think I will continue, right? I can do that. So this is rather slow. As we said, it's Murphy's time today, but let's go back to our project, the ones that we created already, and we can see the pipelines here. Azure pipeline. This is the last thing we ran. You see that it's an unexpected. Yeah, you see something wrong with Azure DevOps today. It shouldn't happen, I guess. Yeah, they are doing something. Now it's building. It's running a job, right? This is the publish and post an image already run before, and this is how the cleanup was. But let's see that if they allow us today to run a new one, or until a question arises. Yeah, let's run master and run it. Sorry for that, but yeah, I can control Azure. This is now running. This is the icon of running, and if we click on it, we'll see step by step what is happening. First preparing the job, then pulling the right images, and at the end pushing to Azure Container Registry. And we can also open Azure Container Registry once until this is done. Azure Container. I'm sorry. This Azure not working put me a bit off schedule, but anyway, optimize. Yeah, I don't want right now. This is the Azure Docker. This is, I guess, the container registry. This is the resource group. Sorry, this is what we were talking about. If I type here container registry, let's see now if it would be first. No, it's again third, but anyway, this is how we create a new one, right? Exactly what we've seen already. And if we search for Azure Docker here, I think that was the name that I already gave. Sorry. This was the correct container registry, Azure Docker 2, I don't know, but anyway. This is the access keys that we've talked about. I will close it and change the access keys now that you've seen it already. And this is the, where are the tags? Let me scroll down a bit. The repositories here, sorry, the name is repositories here. This is the Azure Docker repository, we only have one. And this is the 348. Let me see if this finished and published everything successfully. We are here. We didn't yet published. So we are almost there. Step by step. 2 more steps. And this should be done by now. Let me refresh here. And yeah, we have a 349. And additionally, if we click the latest, we will see this time here, which is not the correct one. This time here, actually, this is not the creation. This is where we created the latest, but this is the current time. So I think that is it. We are 1 minute before the this session ends. I don't see any questions. I hope that you understand everything. Yeah, reach out. Thank you very much. Bye. Apparently it needs 6 more seconds until it stops streaming. It's not happening immediately, but bye again.